an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 3, Episode 9, Human Nature. In this episode, the Doctor is being chased by the family. You know what I'm saying? And he's in witness protection. I think we've all heard this story before. Watch out. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
And I'm Jamie.
So, can I do full disclosure here right out of the gate?
Yeah.
My mind has been poisoned because I was watching this episode and Owen came in and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is the episode that made me stop watching the show."
No!
Yeah. So he just said that shit, so that's in my brain now.
Okay, well, he's wrong. It's not quit worthy. I honestly can't think of like a specific reason that this would be the catalyst for quitting.
It's not even, he said it was like halfway through and he's like, "Yeah, I think this is a two-parter and it really just doesn't need to be." And I was like, well, I mean, that's kind of a thing with the show a lot of the time. So I don't know that really would be a deciding factor for me, but maybe it was for him just because he was a casual watcher.
Yeah. There are far worse episodes. We have watched far worse episodes. And far worse two-parters. So. All
right. Well, that gives me, like, the fact that you didn't go, why don't we just cover them both at once? I figured it was probably a good sign. So, yeah. But I did want to be honest with you all that, you know, I had been told that, and there it is. Once that thing has been planted in your brain, you can't just get rid of it and ignore it. It's going to play a part in how you view it, whether you like it or not. So yeah, everybody go yell at Owen, and that will be good.
Now, when you started watching this, and he's human, like when the nurse listens to his heartbeat and she only hears one heartbeat, what were your thoughts?
I figured, like, because this show, you can do literally anything. So when he only has one heart, I was like, oh, okay, then he has something that can, like, camouflage his heartbeat. Or he could, like, I figured that he was still him. And Martha, it was like a toss-up initially, whether or not she remembered anything. Because when she first comes in, it's unclear. But then it's, you know, pretty quickly you're like, oh, okay, yeah, she still knows what's going on here. Because I almost wondered, when we start off, it's in the middle of, like, them running away from somebody, the family. And I really thought that maybe this was all an elaborate prison. I've watched too much Black Mirror, is what's happening. So I was like, have they both been, like, wiped so that they don't remember who they actually are and they think that this is their reality? But I found it like, I was like, I could go with that if that's the premise, but it would be weird for aliens to pick 1913 Earth to imprison somebody in, you know, like, so that was why I was kind of like, does she even know who he is? Does she remember everything that they've done and where they're from? But then you see her, like, watching with interest when he picks up the fob watch, and later on when she's talking about going places after this, and that we're, like, you know, 30 days and then the contract is up or something. She says something like that, right? And I was like, okay, so she's just kind of on the lookout, but he has no idea. And it just, I kind of like the idea that he, again, I like seeing the Doctor at a disadvantage. Is pretty much what it comes down to, I'm realizing. Like, he is just such a know-it-all that when he doesn't get to be a know-it-all, I enjoy it. You know?
Okay.
So, yeah, I am... So Viserys Targaryen, huh?
Yeah.
Do you know how long it took me to figure out where I knew him from?
It's because he doesn't look like Viserys without that wig.
Oh my god, I was staring at him and I was like, this guy has played a fucking creep before too. That was all I could do to like figure out who he was just like, why does your face creep me out so bad? Right away, you're creeping me out. You haven't even gotten taken over yet, you know? And that's why apparently he just does creep so well that he just keeps getting cast in roles like that.
And Jojen Reed.
And Jojen, right. Who, again, I have special abilities and I'm so sensitive. Apparently that's his thing, too.
Well, he's got that face.
He do have that face, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very convincing. And,
yeah.
I am still curious about how, like, what role he's really going to play in this because, you know, he's got the watch, and he's, like, able to, like, see the memories, but he doesn't actually, he hasn't actually done anything yet. He's just sort of been around when things are happening, but he hasn't contributed. So I'll be interested to see what winds up, what they wind up doing with him.
And the woman who plays the nurse, or the matron, she's from Spaced. Did you ever watch Spaced?
Is that it? Yes. And I know her, I haven't seen Spaced. I know her from, oh my God, Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
And she's the one that's actually capable, that's doing the thing that Shaun is trying to do, but successfully.
Because she and Simon Pegg were in Spaced together. That was their show.
Okay.
And Edgar Wright created it or directed it or was involved in it in one way or another. But I think Simon and she were really good friends, and so they did this show together where they were like roommates. And but when I'd seen this, I didn't know who she was. I hadn't watched Spaced yet. And now when I see her, I'm like, what are you doing?
How many seasons are there of Spaced? I always have the impression for some reason that it's a really long-running show, but British shows don't really do that like American shows do.
It's 2 or 3.
Except for, obviously, Doctor Who. Yeah, okay, see, 2 or 3.
Yeah, and Nick Frost is in it too.
Nice.
It's pretty fun.
So the episode starts like in such a spot that for a moment you're tempted to be like, did I miss like the first half of this already? Because they're in the middle of getting chased.
Yeah, it's like almost like it jumps in mid-sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the first thing he does is go up to Martha and be like, did they see you? Did they see your face? And it becomes pretty clear that, like, later on, that she being the key to where he is would, that would be a huge fucking problem if they knew what she looked like. And they could also imitate her, I would think,
Or just take her over however it is that they took all these other people
over. Yeah, I guess it isn't, because I keep thinking we finally do see the way that they do it, and I forgot about that because I kept thinking that they like are shapeshifters that can like turn into a certain person, but they really take over their body like a body snatcher.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah. So we then jump into him waking up from a really weird dream, and he is a professor. Is he headmaster?
No, he's just a teacher.
Okay.
It seems like maybe he's a history teacher.
Yeah.
Or ish.
He's still a Time Lord in a way. Get it? Get it? But yeah, he's telling her how he has been having these really weird dreams where he's just like a daredevil and a madman, and that she was there as his companion, and she says a teacher and a housemaid. That's impossible. That's impossible. And this is the first moment where I was just kind of like, wait, does she not remember? But she's just playing her part quite well. And
yes.
It turns out that this whole thing has a sort of like expiration date on it, because these folks, aliens who are chasing them, are on the end of their, like, life cycle? Is that the way he phrases it? He says something about how we just have to wait for them to die off.
Yeah, let me see if I can find... Because that's later, when she, like...
Yeah.
is remembering.
Because I pretty much was like, are we just going to be doing this now? Like, was the plan to just erase his memory and hide out forever? But, we find out that there's actually, like, a window here that this is meant to occupy, and then we can go back to business as usual. But initially I was like, this sucks. Like, you couldn't have picked a time for her to come back to that she's not a friggin' servant and that racism isn't, like in the laws, basically? Like...
Yeah.
But I don't know what led to them choosing this period, so I don't know if that ever gets explained or what, but...
The only thing I can think is that if they went to a more modern setting, it would be harder maybe to keep him in one place.
Maybe.
But like a boarding school in 1913 where like you're not really going to be tempted by outside factors to like go explore or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so. We could have gotten him a job on like the one of those like remote areas in like the Thing. What is it that they do? I can't even remember what their job is, but they like,
Isn't it in like Antarctica or something?
Yep. Yeah, keep him in one place up there. They'd never think to look there.
It does say that their lifespans were running out, so they only needed to hide until they die.
Okay, yeah. And we see, like, he's heading on his way to teach a class. And I had forgotten that graduation caps come from professors. Like, that this was
I didn't know that.
I don't know if I researched it or if somebody told me, but I remember thinking how ludicrous that must have looked. And I am not wrong.
Nope.
This looks silly as fuck. I don't know. Like, I really wonder, because there are some things that I couldn't believe we still do, which is like in England, barristers still wearing wigs and things.
Do they still?
Like, I have seen this in, what do you call it?
British shows?
No. Well, yes. But there was something that I saw that was like a clip from something that was actually going on, like a, I'm trying to remember what it even was. But yeah, they still were, and I was just kind of blown away that was like not that had not been done away with entirely.
Yeah.
And they may not now, because I feel like whatever I saw that in was from like the 90s, but it was still recent enough that I was like, are we serious? But yeah, just tradition is a weird thing.
Okay, so I put in do barristers, and the first thing is still wear wigs.
There it is. I wish I could remember what I saw it in.
Those white curly wigs are still worn in British courtrooms, but maybe not for much longer. The courtroom dress of British judges and barristers, which is what British people call lawyers, may look straight out of the Renaissance, but the wigs and robes are more than just a chance to play dress up. Now I have to click.
No, they're not. Get out of here. That's 100% all they are. You liar.
The tradition of wearing a white wig and a robe dates back to the 17th century. There was an academic paper in 1625 called The Discourse on Robes and Apparel, forever changed the way British High Court officials dressed. This work led to the adoption of the robe and wig as a courtroom uniform to distinguish judges and barristers from other members of society.
Of course. From other members of society.
These wigs just look like...
They look like a
gray
joke.
Noodles sewn together.
Completely. They look like a bad joke. I wish I could remember what I saw that in.
It says the seasons and the type of case determine the color and style of the robe the judges wear. Robes of violet, green, black, and scarlet have served different purposes throughout the years, though the color requirements have fluctuated many times in the last few centuries.
Like, imagine being that extra. I am extra. But I don't have a whole different outfit depending on what genre book you've commissioned this week. Like, That would be kind of dope, actually, though. I should do that. But yeah, like, honestly, how are you going to try and act like people should take you seriously, but then do goofy shit like that?
Both judges and barristers wear wigs, but each has their own style. Courtroom wigs are white, often handcrafted out of horsehair, and can cost thousands of pounds. Judges used to wear long, curled, full-bottom wigs into the 1780s when they switched to smaller bench wigs. Barristers wear forensic wigs, which consist of a frizzed crown with 4 rows of 7 curls in the back.
How fucking hideous. Jesus God.
Traditionalists will tell you the uniform carries a sense of power and respect for the law. The robes and wigs also make it more difficult for judges to be identified by criminals and criminal defendants outside the courtroom. I guess.
That feels weak to me. That feels like somebody just said a thing and they were like, yeah, I guess. I don't buy it.
In 2007, a case to change the dress code was brought to court and it won. The Lord Chief Justice Baron Phillips of Worth Matravers stated that wigs would no longer be worn during civil or family cases and that judges needed only one robe. Phillips wanted to simplify the court dress policies. Oh my God, you should see these fucking purple and black wigs. They look like, not wigs, robes. They look like the Beauxbatons.
Nice.
The wigs and robes are still to be worn during criminal trials, but some people want the tradition to be fully wiped from the books.
Yeah, it should be. It's crazy. And it shouldn't be, like, the fact that some of these are, like, thousands of pounds. Like, what? I hate that kind of shit. Also, I love that it's like, oh, and they wore full-bottom wigs. Like, that just sounds filthy, also. Full-bottom wigs, you make the rockin' judge go round.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, this hat is stupid. He looks stupid wearing it. So this is when we meet the matron. And she has a thing for him. And hints pretty heavily that she wants him to invite her to the dance. And he gets so freaked out by the mere idea that he should pursue this that he backs away from her and falls down the stairs. 'Cause that's the kind of goof he be now.
You skipped the whole horrible racist scene with Martha and the kids.
That's true. I was really just hoping that we could just skip it, but we really should.
Well, I don't mind if we don't dig into it too much because we know people are racist and they were racist back then and what he says to her is really fucking horrible. But I did read that this was the first time on New Who that there was anything like overtly said that was racist in dialogue directed at a companion.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, because she's been in eras and it's been, like, addressed that, she is not white. She could be in danger. She's called God knows what by Shakespeare. I can't even remember now. An Ethiop?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first time that it's really been, like, malicious and gross in a way that's specifically meant to hurt. And I just think about this sort of thing sometimes and how that was just life all the time. And it still obviously is. It's just that people are a lot more cagey about it, or at least they were. I feel like they're being a little bit freer lately, but that could also just be because I'm white and I don't know. But it is just, it's really uncomfortable. And I really love, like, what's the name of her friend that she's working with? Jenny. And how she's like, well, and he's very kind to me, which is rare considering and Jenny says, a Londoner? And she was like, yep, that's right, a Londoner. And I just really enjoy Jenny just being like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm not making light of it. I'm not, like, trying to act like that doesn't happen. But also, let's talk about how you're a person from London instead.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel dismissive to me. It feels supportive, which is a very fine line to have to walk. But she is like put in her place a lot of times during this episode. Even when it's not about her race specifically in the dialogue.
No, she's put in her place about her position.
Yeah. And the matron is like telling her that she's gotten a bit too familiar with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you were not aware of their situation, I'm sure that you would feel kind of that way. You know, it makes sense that they're reacting this way. But it is just so hard to watch when you know what he means to Martha and what she would mean to him if he could only remember.
Right. And the way that the matron is like, you are a little too familiar, would that reaction she would have had even if Martha weren't black.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That's all about her. Like, you're a maid. You work for him.
Mm-hmm.
You need to stay in your place.
Although I do feel like she might not have said anything if it weren't for the fact that she's into him.
Maybe, maybe not.
I don't think she would have. I think she would have thought it. She still would have felt that way. But I don't think she would have said anything. I think she would have kept herself to herself on that. But it's the fact that she can tell that Martha has a crush on him as well. And that sort of like pushes her over into handling it in a different way than she would ordinarily, you know?
Yeah.
But that could just be me being sort of not willing to give credit. Or it could just be me being very protective of Martha because I love Martha. And that's certainly part of it.
Yeah, because that's when she says that when Martha finds out that he fell down the stairs, she's like, "Did you check for a concussion?"
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the matron's like, "I know more about this than you do."
Yeah.
And we as an audience can be like, you don't.
You
She's a doctor.
don't.
You're a nurse." But not that nurses know less than doctors, but a nurse of like her in her at this time, she wouldn't know nearly as much as a doctor would.
Yeah. I wonder what Martha could do without the kinds of tools that she has at her disposal in our era. Like, how well she'd be able to cope. That'd be something interesting to see.
Martha?
Yeah. You know, like, if she's like in Deadwood, essentially.
Oh, so when you say our era, you mean like... Well, that's earlier.
No, I said, like, how she would be able to cope if she doesn't have the tools that are available in our era.
Oh.
Like, you know, if she has to use stuff that's a lot more rudimentary, and I'm sure she would manage, but I would just be interested to, like, see that.
Isn't that Claire from Outlander?
Claire isn't as much, like, Claire was, what, World War II?
She was a World War II nurse, but when she goes back to the Highlands, you know, in the 1700s, she has to use her knowledge and use, like, her understanding of plants to be like a doctor.
And that's my point, is she went and like had somebody training her on how to spot certain plants. Martha doesn't have any knowledge like that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know how well she'd do. Like if I don't know what medical training involves. Do you get taught what they used to use and get taught, like, if you're in a situation where you don't have access to everything that the modern medical community has to offer, do they teach you how to cope with that and what to look for and how to, like, create, you know, tinctures and solutions and whatnot out of plants and molds and fungi?
I don't know for sure, but I doubt it. I bet they rely way too much on the modernness of medicine. That, you know, they might know, like, oh, if I have to do a trach, I know I can use a straw or I can use a pen or whatever, as we've seen on TV shows and whatnot. But they might not know, like, if I mix these two things together, it's going to make this bleeding stop faster.
That'd be an interesting thing to take. I guess you'd call it sort of like survival medicine. Like if there's, you know, something goes wrong, if we have a fucking apocalypse, basically.
Right.
I feel like that would be potentially very useful. Or if you just wind up, like, having to volunteer out somewhere that doesn't have that kind of stuff for miles and miles, you know? If you're in a war zone, for instance, I feel like that could be really useful and helpful. Yeah, anybody listening,
Yeah,
if you know about that shit, tell me, because that's actually I'm very curious about it now.
Yeah. I've never really thought about it before, because I was thinking, like, would it be like the history of medicine? But it seems like they just sort of ignore all of the discovery period of medicine and just focus on this is what we do now. So we don't need to know that stuff. Like, there was a whole thing, I think, on Grey's Anatomy at one of the many seasons where they were starting to, like, bring in these, like, robotic things, and one of the older doctors, they had these, like, training sessions, and he just closed his eyes and was doing things, and everybody was amazed, and they're like, how did you cheated, you practiced, and he was like, no, it's muscle memory. You cannot rely on the robot. You need to actually know what you're doing. And I feel like that kind of thing gets ignored in a lot of the discovery of why these medications work, and, you know, what it was before it got, like, synthesized and mass produced.
Yeah, that feels like it would be very important. I'm interested now, because that's the sort of thing that, like, if you're teaching, like, the history of medicine, it's very theoretical. But if you're going to be doing something like this, it'd be so cool to, like, have it be a hands-on thing where they send you out into a literal field, and they're like, we know that the thing is out there that you need, and we know that you have been taught how to produce X, Y, Z. You have to go find it and put your equipment together and make it. And then you have to turn it into us, and we will analyze it in the lab and find out how effective it would be compared to somebody else's, you know?
A medical scavenger hunt mixed with potions making.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds really fun. Let's just start organizing that for med students.
It sounds really fun, again, theoretically. But if you asked me to do any of that, I would immediately be like, it's hot. This plant's sticky. Ah, the smells. I stepped in something.
I don't like these thorns.
Yep.
Oh, those little sticky things are all over my pants.
I would just be so useless. Yeah, like, me and medicine is just a bad combo. I can't imagine doing that for a living. Like, God bless people who have it in them, because we need you. But God knows I am not somebody who would be good with stuff like that at all.
No. There's like I think it's a permanent bodies exhibit here. And like the Body World or whatever.
Yeah.
And Jason was like, oh, do you want to go? And I was like, I really, really don't. Like, I don't need to see it. I don't need to see what cancer looks like. I don't need to see what any of that looks like, or even what all of our organs look like, because I'll never be able to unsee it. I'm a very high-strung person about certain things. I have an overactive imagination, and all it's going to do is give me things to be paranoid about. I don't. And also, I just feel like I would be really uncomfortable and think it's kind of gross, because it's not my thing. I'm not interested in that stuff. Thank God for people who are.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I just couldn't.
I don't, like, the body exhibit, I don't feel like would bother me, because everything is all cleaned up and cold and done in this very clinical sort of, like, you know.
Sure.
For me, the thing about medicine that is utterly horrifying is somebody's fucking bleeding, and doing what you need to do to help them is going to hurt so bad. And you have to do it anyway, and they're going to be, like, screaming. Or you're going to have to knock them out and, like, know that their life is in your hand. Like, no, too much pressure. No. Thank you very much. I will sit at my desk and talk about Doctor Who, and that is fine. Yeah,
I've never wanted a job that puts other people's lives in my hands.
Yeah, no. I may be arrogant, but I ain't that kind of arrogant where I can, like, have any sort of confidence. And I'm not trying to throw shade about doctors being arrogant. Like, you have to be. If you don't have the confidence for that, then it's just not going to... So arrogance is like a requirement, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's valid. But yeah. So anyway, we're very, 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 very far into this episode. Yeah, so she asks to go to the dance. He falls down. Martha gets a little bit too familiar. And she's in the room. I think she, like, brings in tea, or she's tidying or something, as he is talking to the matron and showing her his, what do you call it?
his little journal.
Yeah.
His little diary that his dream journal.
Which, let's be honest, is so creepy. Is that just me?
Really?
Do you see, like, those are like scary stories to tell in the dark level illustrations. It's like ink and water and that's it. And it's all like black and dreamlike and like smudged in weird ways and fades out. So it's very ghost-like. There's a couple of illustrations that have really firm edges and are extremely like distinct and crisp. But a lot of them are just these like freaky shadows and shit. Like Are You My Mummy? Are you kidding me? Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sir. And then Rose, like, she's up in there, and I'm like, that's Rose because she looks like a fucking banshee. She looks like bad news.
It is the TARDIS console room, the sonic screwdriver, a Dalek, Mox a Balhoun, which I don't know what that is, Autons, which are the mannequin guys, Rose, the Clockwork Droids, a Cyberman head, Jack Harkness, one of the Slitheen, and gas masks from the gas mask virus. And then there's also sketches of the 1st, 7th, and 8th Doctors, and partial appearances of sketches of the 5th and 6th Doctors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I saw those faces and I was like, who are they? If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't know.
And I feel really bad because, like, he's got fucking Rose in there, but you can see that Martha's sort of low-key waiting for herself to show up, and she ain't in there.
Well, that's true, and she's taking it personally, but she's there physically with him, and what he's dreaming about, and he's dreamt that she's there. Like he said, you were with me. You were my companion. But these things that he's drawing are the things that don't make sense. Like if she pops up in his dreams, like, well, you're my maid and I brought you here with me.
But it could be something like
job.
Her back is to him and she's wearing jeans and, her leather jacket. Like, or it could be one of the monsters that they ran into while they were together. But it's all like that hasn't gone. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like I would want to know that he remembered those things.
Yeah, the only one he would... Well, wasn't there something in his dream? I think you see the Lazarus guy. But most of the things that they've come across are, Daleks. Pig people, I guess.
Witches.
I guess the witches, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, there haven't been that many, like...
Rhinoceros dudes.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I like them. And we do see a flash of... Oh, I think it's when the kid actually is, like, sort of getting his memories from the watch is when we see a lot of them. Yeah. Not from the doctor. So, yeah, you're right.
So, yeah, speaking of this kid... Latimer. He's in the dorm with some of the upperclassmen, and they're talking about how his father has gotten promoted and he's going to be making more money. And Latimer just blurts out, "My uncle had a 6-month posting in Johannesburg. I bet you'll like it there." And this kid is like, "Did you look through my fucking mail? I never said anything about it being in Africa." And you can see that poor little Latimer doesn't even, like, seem to realize that whatever he heard or understands wasn't said out loud. Like, it seems almost like he's confused by this dude being so angry at him until it's specifically said, "I never said anything about Africa." And then he's like, fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've got to learn to be able to tell the difference. This is not going to be good.
Yeah.
And I could really see that being, it's sort of like a Sookie Stackhouse thing, where she just, like, blurts out something before she even really realizes she wasn't supposed to be listening to that part. But yeah, he fucking gets him up against the wall and calls him filth later on, like, none for the filth. When Baines is asking how much beer he should bring back.
I get the feeling that maybe Latimer is a scholarship kid, and these are the rich kids whose parents bought them into the school.
That might make sense. So,
but he's also like wicked smart, so they're like, do our homework for us.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I wonder, like, because I was saying with the upperclassmen, but what if he's like so gifted that he's actually in their grade? I could see that being a lot of resentment as well.
I kind of get the idea that maybe that's part of it, because he's like having him do his Latin homework.
Okay, yeah.
For him, and he's like, do it in my best handwriting.
Right. My best.
Like, you piece of shit.
Right. And Baines is going to head out and get some booze that is hidden somewhere. I don't even remember. But this is Harry Lloyd looking so very unlike. It was just so. It took me so long. It took me so long. Do you know who he kept reminding me of in this episode? Was like an evil version of Jarvis from Agent Carter.
Oh,
you know, because he's got.
I can kind of see it.
Yeah, he's got that
it's
very
that sort
like
of
British sort of lanky look, and
yeah,
the long
like,
nose and stuff.
Long nose and like sort of. I don't want to say pinched, like, it's not like he sucked on a lemon kind of pinched, but just like, you know what I mean? Sort of squinty-ish eyes and...
Which, I gotta be honest, was my jam when I was younger. Like that, I went for that type so hard. I now go for slightly beefier type dudes, but Jarvis still holds a special place in my heart. That actor is just yummy to me still. And
very handsome.
Before this kid became creepy in this episode, I was low-key like, maybe, but then he's just such a douchebag.
Harry Lloyd is really, really good looking.
He is. It's just this, there's this affectedness to him that...
Yeah, then he starts playing a role and you're like, you keep getting typecast as this guy for a reason. You do it very well.
Exactly. Yeah, so... He steps outside, going through the window, and we see him later in this fucking field that a meteor falls into. Sure it does.
I think.
Yes. And before that, we cut to Martha and Jenny, and they are outside the pub. They are not allowed to sit inside. All kinds of things like
the
this.
Patriarchy.
Like, it's not... Like, there's so many... There's a moment in Deadwood where a carriage pulls up and it's super hot and gross outside, but two people are sitting on the outside of the coach because they aren't allowed inside. And it's the black woman and the Chinese man. And I just, I don't even think about like simple luxuries of being able to sit fucking inside were just denied to you. You were not allowed, and it wasn't even like thought of. It was just, you knew it, they knew it, and that's just how it worked. And, oh my God, like, gross. So, this is when they start talking about the stars and how she's going to go away, and Jenny is just like, all right, you crazy. And I'm like, yeah, Martha, maybe just keep this shit under your hat a little bit more, girl, that's all I'm saying. But then they see...
Jenny sort of seems to take it like, you're such a dreamer.
Exactly.
You've got such lofty ideas. You're such an imagination, Martha.
It's just so, like, she sounds so crazy. Like, if you were on a lunch break with somebody who was saying this shit to you, how would you react?
Like, if I was on a lunch break now and someone was like, yeah, I'm only going to be here a few more weeks, then I'm just, like, totally going to go to Saturn.
I'm going to go up into the stars, anywhere. Just look up there. I can go so many like, you'd just be like, oh, God. Yeah, no, I guess that sounds fun. You just, like, have no idea how to handle it. So I have to say, I kind of admire that Jenny's, like, I don't know, just sort of rolling with it as coolly as she is. She just seems, it's almost, there's almost a lack of curiosity there that I'm like, what is up with you? But at the same time, there's a mind in your own business that I admire and should probably do more of myself.
I kind of took it like, she's like, gosh, I've just never met anyone like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're such a neat person, Martha. You have such crazy ideas. You talk in such a way that is it just because you're from London and I've never met someone from London before? Like,
she's going to get a freaking rude shock if she goes to visit London at some point. But my friend said we were allowed in the pubs and we could wear pants. I don't know where you think you are, madam. So she sees this thing like streak through the sky, and at first Jenny's just like, I didn't see anything, and she doesn't sort of trust her eyes initially. She's like, maybe I just imagined it because it was a really quick flash. But then the doctor and the matron, what's her name, Joan?
Yeah.
They come out and there's another one, and it streaks and seems to like land somewhere. And she asks Jenny specifically, where is that it landed? Like, what's in that direction? And then we cut to Baines, who is trying to find that secret cache of beer. And I should mention that there was like a weird sequence with Joan like walking by herself, where they're like shooting down what seemed like searchlights or something. I don't really know, like, what was that about? Because they're just searching an empty field.
I think they're searching for him or for signs of him. The TARDIS or... because what he says at the beginning is that they have stolen a time agent's vortex manipulator and can follow the TARDIS anywhere. So I think they're like actually trying to search for signs of the TARDIS.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes more sense, because I was just like, they know that he's going to have to be hiding amongst people, so what are they just doing, searching a field for? But yeah, he would leave the TARDIS somewhere like that, so that makes sense. So Baines follows this sound. He has this like very sort of mild look on his face considering what he's seeing. Like, there's a crazy thing happening, and his eyebrows just kind of go up like, huh. Like he just saw somebody juggling really well. You know, just something really, like, it's surprising, but like not, he doesn't seem to have the level of shock or fear that one would expect for something like that.
Right. It's like he's hit an invisible wall, because he has. Mm-hmm. And is like, well, that's very strange.
Yeah.
And it's almost the arrogance of a man. Like,
Misinterest.
That's weird. Yeah. What is... Huh. Well, I'm just going to keep touching it, because what could possibly happen?
Yeah, he like fucking hits it.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not? And then he figures out that there's a door, and he just walks through that shit. Can I tell you how much I've probably missed out on in life? Because I would not walk through that fucking door for $1 million. Are you kidding me? Are you high? Absolutely. No. And granted, it doesn't go well for him. The consequences of going through that door are quite dire. So I would have been making the right choice in this particular case. But there are a lot of things that I'm like, man, what if something really cool happened? And I just missed it because I'm such a freaking scaredy cat that I'm just like, ooh, scary door. No. You know?
Yeah. I don't know. There's like a part of me that thinks like, no, I would definitely be curious enough. And then there's another part of me that's like, since when?
Don't you lie to me. Yeah, I just, I have this like, I'm the sort of person that I have an overactive imagination.
Yeah.
And I have read too much. And I also just like, the idea of going through a door into something that you can't see, I can immediately come up with like 7 pure nightmare scenarios for what's on the other side of that. I just can't.
Yeah. No, I know I wouldn't, because I would be like, no. Absolutely not. I can't see it. No.
And not just nightmare scenarios, but like, if you tried to tell me, but maybe there's something good on the other side, I would have nothing. That's where my imagination fails me. I can come up with something terrible, but if you would try to be like, but maybe there's something good, I'd literally be like what?
Yeah.
I couldn't come up with any sort of theory on my own.
What? is there anything on the other side of this invisible door that is good enough for me to risk walking through it?
Yeah, unless you were like, maybe there's a cure for cancer, or like, a bottomless sundae or something. I would just not even consider. No. So Martha and Jenny come walking over, but they can't see anything because this thing is cloaked. And Jenny's just like, see, there's nothing there. I told you. And they wind up leaving. And I was like, but it's right there. But it's good that they don't go any closer because it would have been very bad. VV bad. So, okay. Next, we go to him inside. And he's having a conversation with nothing. And seems like he says something about how I want to see you. Why would you want to see us? To know what you look like. Why would you want to know what we look like? And then they're like, well, we'll take on a familiar appearance very soon. And he starts screaming. Now, does Jenny scream when they take over her body? Because it feels like he's screaming because he sees something terrifying. But then I was like, is he screaming because of like it invading his body, or?
Well, do we see them really? I think it like cuts before they actually take over her body.
I thought it floated towards her and we saw it like enter her body. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, I'm not remembering. I might have looked away from the TV at that moment.
I'm going to find it. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. His face, his fucking weird face. Yeah, no, it goes like through her eyeballs.
Well, maybe she's not such a baby.
All right, I like that theory. Maybe she's not a goddamn whiner. Maybe she was raised to tough it out a little bit. Probably.
Yeah, she's had a little bit of a harder life than him. She has to be stronger. She's, a woman, so she's constantly talked down to, and she's had to work for everything she has. And this is some prissy little rich boy who thinks that the world hands things to him, and like, oh my god, that's terrifying.
I'll hand you an alien. See how you like that.
He gives like this really high-pitched scream too, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah. It reminds me of Owen a little bit because Owen has a really high-pitched scream. It's hysterical.
Really?
I don't think he realized that he completely developed his adult scream off of Homer Simpson. So his surprise scream
is that
it's a ah! Like 100. It's not an affectation at all. That's genuinely the sound that he makes, and it is so funny every time to me. Yeah, and he didn't
please scare him on purpose and video it so we can all hear
Well, and what's funny is like he didn't notice until I said something. I was like, babe, you really do scream exactly like Homer Simpson. Like right after he screamed about something. I think the cat scared him or something. And he like looked at me and was like, babe, I am shook. I do sound that has to be like I did that on purpose and I never even knew that I was doing that. But that's 100% who I sound like. I was like, I know. I thought that I did think it was kind of on purpose. And he's like, no. So, yeah, I find that
That's
very funny. I'm sorry, I just keep thinking of Panic. It's like we hit a pothole, and that's the sound he makes. Things like that, But
oh my god.
Meanwhile, I'm on the other side going, "Fuck!" We have very, very different reactions. All right, so he gets taken over, and then walks very creepily back to the school with his fucking bug eyes. And Latimer can tell that that something is wrong with him. He's just freaked out and is just focusing entirely on shining his shoes so that he doesn't have to look this guy in the face because it just makes him so uncomfortable. Which
he also keeps sniffing.
Ah, I know. And then trying to be like, oh, I just have a cold. And I'm like,
yeah.
That's not what people do when they have a cold, dude. So then we go to Martha, who is going to the TARDIS, and we find out that the doctor actually left like an emergency protocol video. Mm-hmm. And she is going there to sort of like calm and center herself, which you would do. Like, if you can't remember anything and there's nobody, you'd almost kind of start to wonder if you made it all up, if there wasn't someplace to go to remind you that it's real. Yeah. You know? And she's watching this video where he has instructed her about, not opening the watch until it is for certain that the family has found them. And she is remembering how it all went down and how he used this thing in order to basically like rearrange his molecular structure so that he's a human now.
Rewrites his biology.
Yeah.
It's a chameleon. It's called the chameleon arc.
And it hurts.
Or chameleon arch? Chameleon arc.
I don't know. I'll get there in a second though. But yeah, it hurts real bad. And it's obviously really hard for her to watch him like going through this. It's excruciating secondhand pain. And he says they can smell me, but they haven't seen me. And their life supplies are running out. That's what it says. Life supplies. Interesting. Huh. Okay. So, yeah, he tells her, I'm going to become human. And that's interesting because, like, I would assume that means that he can't regenerate anymore. If he gets hurt in this form, I would think that that's that. Which, that's higher stakes than usual, you know?
Yeah, that makes it even more risky.
Yeah. Yeah, it says chameleon arch or arc. It looks like arch, but people sometimes pronounce arc. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why I can't remember exactly what they said.
Yeah. And he says, I should have just enough residual awareness to let you in. What does that mean?
It means that if all of his memory is completely wiped, like he's not going to recognize her either, but there'll be just enough residual for him to know that he knows her.
Gotcha.
And this thing is going to rewrite his history for him too. Mm-hmm. But he's going to know that he knows her, so she can say, no, I'm Martha. And he'll be like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Like, I wish we actually saw that part of their conversation like, once he did this, so that we could understand how exactly he got this job. I suppose that would have dragged the episode on a bit more, but...
Listen, logistics.
Yeah.
You know how I am? I want to know all of this stuff. You can't tell me that he just came up with his idea on his own. But he also has, like, does he just wake up and decide, like, it's... Have they landed in 1913 when he does this? Has he decided on that already?
I'm wondering if the TARDIS sort of... Because the TARDIS seems to know things, you know, like maybe the TARDIS took him to a time where he could be well hidden.
Well, whatever the case... It is just really like a risky proposition that went far better than he could possibly have expected it to go when he did it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And part of his instructions are just, I'm going to put this on emergency power, so if you can hide it, you don't have to, like, you know, it will be fine if we leave it alone. Don't let me hurt anybody. Don't get involved in historic events. Don't let me abandon you. And he skips ahead, or she skips ahead a bunch of things. And she asks about, like, what about a meteor? And a little bit later, when she runs into him kissing Joan, she comes back and she's like, yeah, but what about other women? You didn't see that one coming. Which he definitely did not. And he warns her that, please wait until the last second if you have to open the watch. Because if you do... they will 100% be able to find me. And it seems like, because I worried that once it was open, that was it, and they could, like, lock down immediately. But it seems like his consciousness being opened when he's not around doesn't have that effect permanently.
Right. Like, I think if if anybody else opened the watch, they might not have sensed the things that it's sort of emitting out of it, but because this kid does, and he's already got some kind of weird special ability, he's able to pick up on it. It's like it's got a frequency.
Yeah.
And he can hear it, but nobody else really can.
Yeah.
But if the doctor opened it up, it would immediately snap into his consciousness.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he can like hear it even when it's just sitting on the shelf, which is what leads him to coming to pick it up and putting it in his pocket, which is one of those things. In this case, it is such a crazy object that I can understand being like, I am going to take this. But also, when it's that crazy an object, how do you think somebody's not going to notice that shit's missing? That is obviously very important. And you're just going to like waltz the fuck out of here and think they aren't going to see that it's gone? Like, right.
This like really intricately engraved fob watch, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's just... Because this is a real trope, you know? Like, oh, you startled me, so I stuffed it in my pocket. But, like, it wouldn't just... You know, in most cases, it's supposed to be like, I don't want you seeing that I was touching your stuff. And in this case, it seems to me much more like, I want to keep looking at this thing without being interrupted. So, I'm going to hold on to it, you know?
Also, I think the doctor, like this chameleon thing... also sort of programmed him to not be too super interested in the watch himself, so that he doesn't just start to fiddle with it and open it up and like ruin this plan. So then later when Martha noticed it's gone and he was like, I don't know what you're even talking about. And then Joan is like, but there actually was a watch there. Yeah,
Joan has to be like, she's not making shit up, dude. Thanks, Joan. Appreciate you stepping up for a second. It's just being like, hey. But Martha, she fucking like hauls off and fucking slaps him across the face.
Yeah.
Honestly. It's fun. I liked it. He deserves that every now and then. I'm just saying.
He sure does. I agree. But I think in this situation, Martha needs to take it down a couple notches. Maybe wait until Joan leaves the room. Maybe say, sir, I really have to have a private conversation with you. It's a personal matter. You know, since she works for him, like that would be a good reason to, you know, have Joan excuse herself and then be like, okay, where's the watch? But instead she like runs in and is like, where's the watch? They found you! Blah!
When she knows that he doesn't remember, so she sounds
no idea what
nuts.
she's talking about. Yeah, like I don't understand the writing choice to have Martha act like that, even though it has the bonus of her slapping the doctor when this isn't the time that he's needed to be slapped, but sure.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I want him to get slapped, but I also want him to know what he's getting slapped for. And this has, there's no satisfaction here. He's just like, what the fuck?
And then also to have Joan be like, well, you know, there was a watch, though. She's not wrong. Like, it's nice with all this weird sort of tension they're putting between these two women, for her to be, like, on Martha's side in that way.
Yeah, true.
Like, she's acting crazy, but what she was saying is not a lie.
You're dismissed.
About the watch. The rest of it, I don't know. I don't know who's found you. Some family? You in trouble with the mob?
I can't stop thinking about it in that sense, especially since he's basically in witness protection, except like he's protected from himself as well.
Right. Can you imagine if witness protection was like this, though?
But they just wiped your memory?
Yeah, they just reprogram you?
It'd be like Dollhouse or something.
Oh, that makes me want to rewatch Dollhouse.
Listen, that is one of those shows that I am afraid to go back to because I don't know how it aged. Very like, you know, I'm curious, but I'm also like,
I have rewatched it, but not in the last few years. I rewatched it probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was still really good. But now, and I was already starting to have like really complicated feelings about the like, hey, this is all like sexual assault that's happening to these poor women. but I've gotten more, like, even more upset about that stuff.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, I might have to skip a lot of it and just go to the stuff I really love, which happens later in the first season and most of the second season.
And they, like, at least address it within the text that that's what's
Yeah.
happening. It's not like a show that's unconscious that it's portraying that. But,
Right.
you know, considering, like, the revelations about Joss Whedon being a total creep as well, it's hard for me to, like, not,
I know.
you know.
I know. I just really want to watch Victor and Topher and Sierra again, you know?
Victor.
God damn, that guy is like the best actor.
He's so amazing. It's absurd. God damn it. Now I want to cover it. I was thinking about covering it with Miles for a long time, but then I sort of shelved it because Westworld was like so amazing and it had so many similar themes and conversations surrounding it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's short, if that helps, because I don't think either season was a full season.
that's true.
Oh, and Tom O'Pennicott is in it. Oh, yeah, I like that show.
All right. So there's this weird thing with the kids, like, being taught how to use artillery weapons. And this fucking asshole asks for permission to beat Latimer.
Yeah.
Which the professor's like, permission granted. And I was just like, I can't believe this was a thing. Of course it was a thing. But Jesus fuck. We are fucked up.
Yeah, humans are garbage.
Oh my God. That this was just fucking like, what do you call it? Policy, I guess. You know? This was how we handled it. And I like the fact that Joan is watching and is a little bit like disappointed in the doctor.
Yeah.
And kind of, she says something like, I'm just going to give your journal back, because watching him supervise this sort of thing, when this is how she lost her husband, apparently she's a widow, it bothers her a lot that he could kind of be like tacitly endorsing this. And of course, Latimer is suffering all kinds of weird, like, he's got guilt because he knows that the people that they are supposed to be shooting are only armed with spears, which is horrifying. And they're using fucking machine guns. And then he's also struggling with, like, being overcome by weird PTSD memories that aren't his of World War I, which has not happened yet.
Yeah, they're his memories, but they're future. They're like future visions of World War I, which is coming up.
Oh, I thought he was having memories from the doctor having been in World War I himself when he time traveled at one point.
No.
Because the doctor says, like, in his journal, she brings up that he writes something about, she says something about those drawings of all of the mud, and you said a darkness that will cover the world.
Yeah, because it's 1913, and I think World War I starts, like, the following year. So the doctor, because he kind of knows all of history front and back, like, must be having some residual memory of some sort in his dreams about this upcoming war, considering that he's in 1913. But Latimer, who has this weird ability where he can hear people's thoughts or knows information that he shouldn't know, and then he's having this sort of vision of himself in World War I, which hasn't even started at this point.
Right. That's not related to the memories that the doctor has?
Maybe, I don't think so, but maybe having opened up the fob watch and, like, maybe it's accentuating it or making them stronger.
Okay. Because, yeah, so far I haven't seen anything that told me that he saw future things. I just saw that he could, like, read minds and stuff, and that he was sensitive to sort of paranormal things that were around the room, like, you know.
Right.
But as far as seeing the future, I didn't think that that was a thing he could do. So I just assumed that this was all coming from the doctor.
This says Latimer is haunted by a vision of the future where he and Hutchinson are under attack in the upcoming war.
Okay. Yeah, so he gets so distracted by that this gets to drag him off and beat him, which is awesome. Great. I hate it so much. This reminds me, actually, for those of you who are interested in continuing to read all of the Anne of Green Gables books, mild spoilers, but well, not actually. It's pretty intense spoilers. But one of the final books of that series, Anne gets married and she's with what's his name? Gilbert, that's the one. And she has children, and one of them is sort of a Latimer type. He's extremely sensitive, really, really creative. And he is so horrified by the idea of having to kill people that he does not enlist, and he gets treated like trash by everybody because he's an able-bodied young man who they think is just too chicken shit to fight. And he finally does enlist, and he dies. And it's
Which
really
war is
sad.
that?
It's World War I.
It is.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember exactly when those books took place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right at the turn of the century. And it's supposed to be sort of like a tribute to him, that he writes a poem about war that outlives him. And I just could not have given fewer shits that he wrote a poem about war that outlived him. He was great and he should have lived. And I got really angry. War is stupid.
War is stupid.
It's just so, like, if we were just having, like, legit fights about, you know, actual rights, I would be okay with that. But war is never like that. It's always just loaded with all kinds of fucking, like, double dealings and ulterior motives, and rich people getting rich off of shit and being able to skate by without risking anything, and the poor getting fucking thrown out there like ground beef to be fucking smashed to pieces. And it's just the worst. But anyway, that's fun. So they wander off and talk about the pros and cons of teaching kids in the art of war. And he's in the middle of talking about how you can be a hero in the everyday without having to have war be a factor. And just as he's thinking that, he sees this is so cartoonish. He sees some guys who are, like, hauling a piano by a rope to, like, up to a window, and a woman with a friggin' baby carriage walking around below them, about to get hit by this falling piano because the rope all starts to fray.
Yep.
I mean, come on. All we needed was, like, a as it fell. It was really quite a bit too much. And he finds a rock and throws it that hits a thing that knocks something else over.
No, he takes a cricket ball from a kid.
Cricket ball, okay.
Yeah. I thought it was an apple until I was reading this like recap. And I was like, oh, that was a cricket ball? Okay.
But yeah, it winds up knocking over a barrel in front of her pram so that she can't walk forward, and just misses getting smashed to death by this fucking falling piano. And it's really quite a lot. But, you know, sure. I just, it's just, yeah, okay. And naturally, Joan is very impressed by this display. And while she had been a bit cool towards him after this whole thing with the kids, this sort of renews her interest. And she's like, and it also seems to sort of invigorate him. And he asks her all of a sudden if she would go to the dance with him, when he was very, very afraid to ask previously.
Yeah.
It's like it sort of got his memory going about the kinds of risks he used to be able to take.
Yeah.
That's my read on it anyway.
It gave him confidence.
Okay.
If nothing else. I mean, your read might not be wrong, but it definitely gave him confidence to be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, let's go to the dance.
Right, yeah.
We did skip the part about some scarecrows.
Yeah. I was like in the middle of talking about this, and then I was like, oh shit, the scarecrows. We got to go back and talk about them. So the scarecrows are terrifying. How many people cosplay this? Because I really want to, except that I'm sure it's hot as balls.
I would imagine having that burlap over your head would be, but let me Google real quick.
Because these are some real creepy costumes. And like, there are some that have just like, you know, regular sort of brown burlap style stitching. But then there are some that have like stitching that looks like it's been stained red. Not even that it's red thread. It looks like it's like somebody took the thread and ran it through a little pool of blood or like, something red, pink, whatever, and then used it to stitch the eyes and mouth. It's real creepy.
People definitely do cosplay it, and it's fucking terrifying.
I'm saying. I think out of all...
Ah! Hate it. Oh, clicked on one. Not a fan. I'm going to send you these pictures. Oh my god, they're fucking terrifying.
Yeah, this is like, I think, probably the scariest creature.
It's definitely up there. I really don't like it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I know that there was another one that I got really flipped out by. But I can't remember now what it was. I'm looking at it. How to make a Doctor Who scarecrow. Yeah, these are freaky. Oh, and they leave just enough of an opening so that you can see through it. That makes sense. Because, yeah, they're a little bit, like, asymmetrical. They need to make them more lumpy and weird.
Yeah. Here's another one.
This is cool. Yeah, that might be a fun Halloween costume. I might do that this year. Because it's really simple. Mm-hmm. And it like if you don't know how to sew, all the better, because it's supposed to look like a sloppy mess.
Yeah.
And definitely like freaky. So I might do this one. Cool. But yeah, they like jump out because one of them like moves as this guy is walking towards it, and he sees it move and assumes that it's somebody fucking with him and gets really pissed. And then he comes closer and realizes that like he like digs out its guts because he thinks that there's a person and there's nothing in there, and he starts like he's in the middle of being like, wait, what the fuck? And then he looks up and he sees that there are a bunch of them, and these are apparently parts of the family. Because Sarah said like activate the soldiers, something like this,
something like that. Yeah, so they're like the henchmen.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he gets taken over, and next time we see him, there's, he's obviously not himself, and there's a little girl that they take over as well, who has a little red balloon, so there's a very, like, It sort of feel to it. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, that's just so... And eventually, they jump Jenny.
Yeah.
And it's just such a, like, I really like the actress who's playing Jenny, because when she first comes across one of them, she does such a good job of, like, being scared, but then immediately being like, is that you, so-and-so? Like, with a real sort of tone that you would have if you're pretty positive that this is a friend of yours. It just felt very real to me.
Yeah.
But that is not the case. And when we come and see her inside the ship and she's saying, I don't understand, what did I do wrong? That particular line of dialogue fucked me up a little bit. Like, that just really felt so like, it felt like a little child.
Yeah.
And just the simplicity of, but I must have done something. It can't just be dumb luck that you picked me. There has to be something I did that you would choose to do this to me.
Like, she thinks that, because she doesn't know that they're aliens or whatever, she thinks that she's being punished because she's probably used to being in the position that she has and, not high class, being around all these high class people, that she must have done something to deserve punishment.
Right. Yeah. I really like her, and I feel bad because she gets taken over. And then she goes to hang out with Martha, and there's like what could have been a lovely afternoon between the two of them, because Martha had been bringing tea over to somebody who, it turns out, did not want tea. And so she got to take it, and they could have split it between the two of them, which is a lovely little treat. But instead, it all gets ruined. Trust me to be very sad about the food being ruined. And that's my focus in this scene. But she sort of tests out, because she can tell that Jenny is acting super weird, asking very specific questions about things that she previously had shown very little curiosity about. And she's like, what's happening here? And she says something about, like, what if I add a little gravy to the pot? And just saying some wild shit that eventually Jenny is just like, yeah, that all sounds great. And she's like, fuck.
Did she say something about anchovies?
Yeah, how about a little bit of anchovies and jam, I think.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how gross that tastes?
Anchovies are one of those things that it's banana pants to me. That's like, when I think about old-fashioned food that we don't really eat anymore, but that used to be very popular, a lot of what I think of is sort of bland, to be honest. It's just like really boring food that was easily available but wasn't very like flavorsome. And now, you know, I look back and like anchovies were such a thing because they were tinned and it was really easy to like carry them around as a snack because they were like small and they had a key so that you could like peel them open and you didn't have to have a can opener on you. And they are the stankiest thing. They are incredibly pungent. And the fact that that was just a thing that you would just have like on toast is crazy town to me.
Yeah, I never liked fish anyway, so it's not something I've ever tasted, but it's not something that anybody in my family ate, so I've never actually smelled them or seen a can of anchovies open, not on a cartoon, you know?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've used anchovies like, because they're so pungent, you just need like a tablespoon of anchovy or anchovy paste in order to really change the entire flavor of something.
Oof.
And
I do know that it's in like Caesar
Caesar
it's
dressing.
in Caesar. Yeah, and so I can't eat Caesar dressing.
Yeah, it's in green goddess dressing a lot of the time as well.
Really?
Yeah. Not always.
I didn't know that.
But yeah. The one that I make, it's in it. And like
I didn't like green goddess, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's probably maybe why. But if I leave it out, it doesn't taste the same at all. Like I need to have it in there. But I'm not going to fucking just spread it on toast. Like I'm not a psychopath.
It's also in Worcestershire sauce.
That makes sense.
Because I've actually found like vegetarian Worcestershire sauce. And it tastes like Worcestershire to me, like what I remember it tasting like. It doesn't taste, it still has that like tangy sort of sharpness to it. So I don't know what they substituted to keep, I don't know what the anchovy actually adds to Worcestershire.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I had to, once I learned that, I was like, oh shit. I didn't know I had to read the ingredients of everything.
Right. Yeah, it's just, so anyway, she gets up and runs off. And she's able to get a little ways before the Jenny alien figures out what's going on. And
sort of
tries to shoot her as she's running off. Misses. Obviously. And I'm trying to see where we left off here. Oh, and then, okay, so the doctor comes across one of these straw men. What are they called?
Scarecrows?
That's the one. And he like ties it into place and walks away from it. And the whole time you're waiting for this thing to like come alive and start strangling him to death. But it doesn't. It just allows him to treat it like it's nothing but a little stuffed straw man. And then slowly turns its head and watches him walk away in its very, very creepy fashion. I hate it.
I do not like these scarecrows. I don't hate them.
I'm telling you, they're, yeah. Yeah, it would be kind of good if, like, Owen and I could do a scarecrow, because then we could, like, gang up on people, and it would be extra creepy, because you have that, like, effect, you know?
It'd be really funny if you decided that you were going to be a character from Doctor Who from the episode that he's like, oh, I quit.
That's true, actually.
He just didn't get far enough to see the creepy scarecrows.
Yeah, I wonder how, I'll have to ask him later, after I've actually watched the second one. So they go back to his rooms and he kisses Joan, and it's like when he kisses her, I almost thought that she was going to turn him down because she pulls away from him in such a way at first. And eventually she sort of like initiates because he starts to be like, I've never. And I was like, oh, shit. What, is he going to say that I've never had sex? Like, what are you going to say, Doc? And I don't know if that's like a true thing or if that's meant to be, I just haven't in this body, but he doesn't like know that. So I don't know what he was going to say there exactly. But then she initiates the kiss again and shuts him up. And I was like, oh, dang. And this is where Martha comes running in. He gets very mad at her and she turns around and runs out again and looks absolutely miserable and close to tears, honestly. And she goes back to the TARDIS and is trying to get some sort of advice for how to deal with this. But there's no instructions on how to deal with heartbreak. Sweetie pie, that's just the worst thing that you have to go through. And nobody's advice will help you, I promise. I'm sorry, but it won't. So, yeah, she's just really like, she deserves better. Just stop it, girl. So then, comes the scene where she like rushes in and is yelling at him about the watch and where is it? And you're actually the doctor. All of those things that you were doing are real. And he says, I understand now. It must be so confusing for you. This is what we call a story. And I was like, oh my God, dude, do you really think that's the issue? That she doesn't know what a story is?
Yeah, that she can't tell the difference between the things you've written in your journal and what's real.
Like, I mean...
If that were fake, but it is actually all real.
Right, yes. Yeah, it's so condescending, and she looks at him like she wants to slap him, and then she does. It's fun. And, then he dismisses her, and she goes running up out of there. And, I mean, when she slaps him, it's a wallop. This isn't some, like, pithy little, like, the kind of thing that they do when, oh, I can't believe, I never, you know. This is a serious, like, his whole neck jerks to the side. If somebody hit me like that, they'd be going down. That shit, she wasn't playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, how dare you? Kicks her out, and she is trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, this kid keeps on opening this fucking watch and alerting Viserys Bot to the fact that he's like around somewhere, and he's sniffing the air and walking around with his compatriots, and they're all stopping and turning their heads the exact same way and sniffing in what's like the most unsettling moment in the entire episode. And
should that be the cover page?
I'm thinking maybe, because it is a pretty arresting moment. And the doctor is at the party that he invited her on. And Martha decides that she's going to bring, because she can't find the, what do you call it? The watch. Yeah. So she decides that she's going to bring in the sonic screwdriver because she thinks that this is going to jog his memory, which just makes me crazy. Like, that's not how, this isn't how it works. However, what the fuck else is she supposed to do?
Right.
So,
she's grasping at straws.
Yeah.
She's grasping at screwdrivers. I'm sorry. I'll let myself out. I'm sorry.
Oh, God, I hate you. Makes me so mad.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, why do you?
Can I just say how much I love the fact that these aliens all decide, or not all, the one decides that it's going to keep the balloon?
Maybe they're just frozen in whatever they were doing at the time.
I like the idea that it looks at it and is like puzzled for a minute, and then it's sort of like delighted by it. And it's like, oh yeah,
maybe
you know what? This is fun.
Maybe it just doesn't know, like, she was carrying around something because she's a little kid and was like, oh, balloon, it's fun. And she just thinks it's part of this thing that they took over.
That's just what kids be doing.
Yeah.
I think her coat in this, don't quote me on this, But the coat that she's wearing looks really similar to a coat from the Where's My Mummy episode. So if anybody has any insight on that, I'd be curious to know. And it's a similar era, so it would make sense if they reused costumes there, but it just looked a little familiar to me.
I didn't notice.
But, yeah, so they're sniffing around, and they decide to crash the party. And come in and fucking vaporize 2 people right out of the gate with their vaporizing guns, which I have to say, I am delighted to have some straight up vaporizing guns on this show. This is the kind of thing that is so like tropey that it's like a joke in a lot of stuff. You know, it's like Marvin the Martian type deal.
Yeah.
But I love that it's here because it really is pretty scary when you come down to it. It will be as if you never existed. You will be but like a vague like breath in the air and then gone forever, and nobody will ever be able to find enough of you to even put into like a snuff box. There's nothing. That's freaky. This poor guy just like disintegrates in a second. And poor Latimer is like watching them troop inside, and he can't do anything because he's a child. And he pulls back the curtain to look outside, and one of these fucking straw men is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Dislike. Can you imagine if you looked out the window and that face popped up? You'd never sleep again.
No! I'd probably die of a heart attack in that moment.
Are you kidding me? Like, just... nope. So, they all walk in, and they've got these, like, these scarecrow men as backup here. Some guy tries to be like, what are you doing? And they vaporize that dude. Poor doctor has no idea what is going on. And they have figured out that the doctor is the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a minute before they realize that he has changed himself over to be a human. And it is... the way that Viserys looks at him when he says human... He doesn't blink at all, pretty much, after he's been taken over. It doesn't happen. He acts this possession way more than any of the other actors. He plays alien hard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Besides the head tilt that they all do together... They don't really seem... You can't tell something's wrong about them right out of the gate, the way that you can with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he says human, and he has this, like, side smirk, that is so... He's got to practice that in the mirror. Right? That is fucking... You couldn't draw something that's quite so perfectly, symmetrically unsymmetrical. If that makes sense.
So smarmy.
It's just so... It really does look like a painting. Like his whole face. It's just... It's something. But yeah, then he holds him at gunpoint and is like changed back. And the poor doctor is just like, I don't know what you're fucking talking about. And then they decide to take Martha prisoner. And they're like, all right, we're going to shoot Martha. But... it becomes clear that Martha's probably not the one he cares about the most. He just dismissed her and was about to, like, kick her out of his life. So then they go after Joan. And the episode ends with, choose who you're going to let us kill. It's your choice. Rude.
Rude.
And that's it. That's the end of it. So
to be continued.
I would assume he doesn't choose anybody. But poor Martha.
He just pulls a Kelly Taylor from 90210 and chooses himself.
Is that...
Do you remember that?
No, I never saw that show. No.
Oh. There was like... I can't remember what season, but she was like dating Brandon and Dylan wanted her back and they were both sort of like trying to... propose to her or something, and she chose herself. I choose me.
That seems lame. Just pick one. Shut up. That's fine.
Well, we have a new review.
Yay! Tell me.
The title is I Swear I Posted a Review, 5 stars by Saint Sauces from the United States.
Saint Sauces?
Saint Sauces,
nice.
Yeah. Love the show, hate that I can't binge it, and the wait between episodes is a killer. Thursdays have never been more appealing.
Ooh, yay.
Thank you.
I've always hated Thursdays personally, so I'm glad that I'm making them enjoyable for somebody out there.
And there was one interesting piece of trivia, which was that there was a deleted scene for the episode that showed some more of the video instructions that the doctor gave to Martha.
Oh, that's fun.
And what it was that instruction number 5 stated that the doctor hated pears before a number of improvised statements by Tennant that were intended to be fast-forwarded when shown. And the declaration of the doctor's distaste for pears was removed because the BBC felt that it may encourage children to stop eating pears.
Good God. Guys. Listen, I understand Cookie Monster now has to eat his cookies after a balanced breakfast or whatever the fuck they decided to do. But do they really think? Oh, I'm disgusted.
I guess. I mean, I don't know how influenced are kids by what they see a character do or like on TV or not like, you know?
I mean, I'm sure that they're influenced a lot, but I feel like that's such a tiny little throwaway thing versus an entire character named Cookie Monster. Do you know what I mean? That's one thing. I kind of understand. I don't really like it, and I think it's a little bit much. But at the same time, I'm well, fine, whatever. But that's quite a lot. All right.
I just thought it was funny.
It's pretty funny.
So yeah, that's that.
Well, all right. Well, I'm going to say hi to some new patrons then.
Cool.
Let's do this, shall we? It's going to be a minute, so everybody strap in. It's not terrible, but there's a lot of you because after I announced that I was going to be changing the way that I did things, it encouraged a lot of people to sign up. So we have Wesley Woods, Lindsay Geese, Rose V, Chris Goodnight, Emily Birchfield, Anna Melnick, Adam Sullins, Karim, the wheels on the Merkaba go round and shout holy.
I'm sorry. What?
That was Karim, first name. Last name, the wheels on the Merkaba go round and shout holy. That's the surname. Danielle.
Must be really hard to get on a license.
Jeff Cleveland, Barbara Matthews, Laney, Nika Wind, Melanie Feldman, Amy Lee, Victoria Lynn Hawley, Malin Lundberg, Carmen, Olga Melchor, Alyssa, Altus Momberg, Emma Clark, Linnea, Carly Clayton, Kenning, Christina Taylor Barry, Laura Weisgarber, Lydia, Carmen Lewis, Destiny Nelson, Jean-Marie Tom. No, you're an old one. You've been here. Get out of here, Jean-Marie. Emily Everett, Katarina Varfing. Ooh, that's a tricky one. How do you say a V immediately following an F?
I don't know. I've never seen those two together.
Vorfing. Ooh, that's pretty tough. Linda Vyong, Melissa Learman, Tara Atwood, Dow. Ooh, Dow messaged me and said how you pronounce this, and it's like a D, like Dothy. Something like this. Hoxton. I'm so sorry. I know you emailed to tell me and I forgot. Alyssa Cusimano, Jamie Asselstein. Yes. Debbie Perdue, Lenaria, BFG Boy. You name it. Stacy Sikala, Jacob Sanders, BT Builds, Rachel. Nope, she's been here. What's up? Louisa Rego, Elizabeth, Katie Butcher, Sal Miner, and who else? There's one more. Lori Reeder. And that is everybody. So we had a bit of a sign-up rush, and I really appreciate it. Thank all of you guys. I am officially at an even 700 patrons, which is very exciting. Yeah. So
Chris Goodnight is who left this review.
Oh, cool. Well,
because he signed his name at the end of it.
All right, cool. Thank you, Chris. So wait, so Chris is Saint Sauces?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, Chris hits me up on Twitter sometimes. So
cool.
He's pretty involved with chatting about the shows and stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, guys, thank you all so much for supporting us. I'm really excited to be at 700. That's an official record for me. I've never been this high. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and we're getting into New Moon, like a lot further into it. We're basically like about a third of the way, and I am really enjoying coverage of this. So if you're a $5 and up patron, I hope you've been liking the show. And if you're somebody who'd be interested in hearing the way we're discussing it, we're not trying to be dicks about it. We're actually trying to, cover it in good faith. And it is fascinating to hear Miles's theories and likes and dislikes and the way he interprets things that, I'm coming at it differently because I know where we're going. Which is the whole point of Unspoiled, but it's a weird sensation because I'm coming at it differently, even though I know where we're going, but I'm not always accurate because I haven't reread it in 10 years. So I'm less spoiled than I usually am when I cover something for Unspoiled. So there's a lot of stuff that I kind of forget is coming, or I take it one way and then realize that I think that because of a thing that happens later, but that's not actually what's going on right now. And I have to sort of correct myself. It's been kind of a weird thing, but I've enjoyed doing it. And yeah, I feel like that's about all I wanted to mention on that. So that's all my announcements. What have you got, lady? Anything else?
No, not right now.
All right.
Nope.
Well, I hope all of you have been enjoying the show. I'm really glad that, so many people, when we post, are excited about it. And I am really interested to see what happens next episode that made Owen so mad. So I guess we'll see.
Well, once we get past this, in a few episodes, remind me, if you think of it, for me to mention why I find it so baffling that this is where he quit.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't left a review, please do. It helps us a lot. It's not just an ego thing, although it is that too. But it helps us get new patrons. The more people who listen, the more people who are potential patrons. And really, my goal eventually is to be big enough that I can genuinely employ my friends as somebody who provides jobs and benefits and stuff. That would be really cool someday. As it is, I'm still personally repaying the IRS, but it's fine. We all have to figure things out in our own time.
Yep.
So yeah, help us get there, guys. And the more that I am able to make, the more Unspoiled podcasts there can be, because I can pay other people to cover things, and they can, maybe work less at their regular job eventually, potentially.
I can't even remember what that's like to not work so much.
Listen,
at my regular job.
I think about it sometimes, the way I used to operate, and it's no wonder that I had all kinds of health issues and shit going on. Our culture is messed up, is all I'm saying. It's a disaster.
My boss recently said to me that I'm working too much. Mm-hmm. That I need to schedule myself differently so that I'm not on the floor as much and that I have time to do other things and actually not be in the store.
And if your boss says that when you work retail, it's bad.
Yeah, that's how much I have been working. So I don't miss the paychecks, but I kind of miss the, I only work 27 hours this week.
Right, yeah.
Instead of 50.
Yeah, so guys, help Unspoiled grow, tell people about us, share our tweets on Twitter, and tag us and talk to friends about us and go on Reddits for Doctor Who and be like, you all should listen to this great podcast. Do all that. It really, really matters, like in a genuine, tangible way.
Yeah, word of mouth really goes so far.
Yeah, it does.
It helps so much.
And it also just makes me happy when I stumble on a thread that it's not even like something somebody's tagged me in or anything. And I just see somebody asking like, what podcast should I listen? And somebody is just like, have you checked out Unspoiled? And I just happened to see it. That's happened a couple times. They didn't tag me. It wasn't something in like, but it's always fun to realize that people are out here talking about the show.
Yeah.
And that's just part of their conversation. And they're not even trying to get my attention over it or anything, you know? So
yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for all of your support.
Thank you guys.
And we'll see you next week with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.